We're going to have a presentation from Maciej Miąsik, Pixel Crow, Beat Cop, a short walk that turned into a long journey into uncharted waters.
Hello. Okay. I'm happy that so many people are here, despite yesterday's party and very early time. So let's go. It won't be actually a design talk. I will talk mostly about the production, the problems we had with the BitCup as a game. So let's start. I'm Maciej Miąsik. I'm game developer because it's very difficult to describe what I do in games because I do mostly everything which is required to make a game, if I can. I work on several games. Those on the left are most important. Those on the right, I just did some things for them. But when I made a previous presentation, I took a look on the list and I noticed some pattern here. That list. Obviously, you don't see any pattern here because you lack some important information, but I decided to emphasize something. You can guess from the colors something is wrong with this list. There's 11 projects, only 2 of those were done on time. 9 of those were late. 30% to 200% late. So I excel at making projects late, I think. And one of those, green, was not late because there was no date for it. So it was quite easy not be late in that time. And another one was not late because we did exactly the same game than before, just reduce the scope. So it was very easy for us to be on time and in budget. Everything else was a journey into unknown. So I will tell about that a bit later. I suck at making presentation as well. So I downloaded a new template and note that there was information. It's very good to put a quote from time to time, but finding a good quote is difficult, so I decided I will quote myself, because that's easy. So you will notice some quote. So judging on my project, but not only my project, but project of many my friends, being late is a norm in game development. So why is that? Do we lack experience? Of course, when I did my first game, I lacked everything, experience, knowledge, but that game was no late because there was no date. So it was quite easy to be on time. Definitely, after 25 years, I have some experience. I have some knowledge. Maybe I'm grossly incompetent. That's possible, of course. But still, my last game was late by almost 200%. So, why again? Because, estimating work is difficult. Most of the time, from my perspective, it's pointless because you lack necessary information, so I hate it. I try to avoid estimating my work. It's not possible, of course, quite often, but I don't see a point trying to guess how long my work will take. Of course, we have a lot of wonderful formulas how to estimate based on the small information we have. We have, from games producer handbook, some formula which is weighted average. We have official PERT formula. We have very small, very simple vigilant producer formula. That's mine. So I simply always add 50% of buffer to any estimate. But I learned that there is even better formula, times pi. You take likely case and simply multiply by 3.14. And many people laugh, like you. But suddenly they stop and start considering, this is not that fun formula, actually. It would work for many of my projects. And it would be much better in guessing the time necessary to finish the task. Because trying to estimate the task, we have eternal conflict between what we think we need to do when we simply think about when we're planning, between what we actually think to do and how difficult will be to get there, what is necessary in reality. And we estimate when we have only a small amount of information, and then we do this stuff and learn that in reality it was completely different. So usually, many games I did was a kind of journey into unknown, into uncharted waters, because we don't know where we are going. We have some vague idea about the game. We don't know the route. And very often we will change the heading. So for me, there is no easy way to guess how long it will. There are a lot of unknowns. There are a lot of unanswered questions at that point. So, for example, would you ask Columbus when he reached America? It wasn't possible to ask him this question because he was trying to reach India at that time. And he couldn't tell you. He couldn't, okay, we'll reach the shore in, I don't know, in 3 months. Because it was a journey into uncharted waters. And many of my games are exactly that way. Oh, another quote. You pray that you reach a land, but before you basically run out of food and water. This is exactly, that was exactly the situation with my game. We have some kind of heading. We tried to reach some land, but there was a lot of dangers and you know, sea creatures ahead of us. And we learned that hard way, that they are there. So now it's time to tell about BeatCup, our trip to India. So we are in mid-2014. We have an idea for the game. That was the start. The idea looked promising. We liked what we had. So it was 2 of us. At the beginning, we had like 40 years of industry experience. So we should pull it off. We thought that at that time. Also, we thought that it will be a simple pixel art adventure with a couple of screens only. That's all. So it should be easy. I did several adventures before. Of course, one of those took 3 years to complete, but not because of the complexity, but because of the time needed to render 300,000 frames of animation. So it took 3 years to do this. But the game, from the logical point of view, from the technical point of view, was quite simple. Other adventures we did also were quite simple. We thought that we are making an easy game. So we said, okay, 12 months will be great. We had interested publisher willing to fund the project, and they accepted. Oh, it looks doable in 12 months. So let's make it official. Let's write the date down in the contract. And we had beautiful milestone plan crafted by myself and Marek Ziemak. You know, we are well experienced producers, so we can create really nice looking milestones. Well, after a couple of prototypes, because we prototype a lot, everything looked well. So we had a basic systems running. We did some test days. We write some dialogues. But we started realizing, okay, we are sleeping with the milestones. Because, well, systems were working, assets were produced, but implementing the story, the story as we envisioned the story at that time, started to be a problem. So we are in mid-2015. We, together with the publisher, you cannot hide this from the publisher anyway, realized that it will take much, much longer. But we saw that the game is really, really interesting, and the quality will be the key for the success. So we have to do this right. And the publisher decided, okay, offered us a kind of Blizzard deal. Do this game as long as possible to make it right. So we switch into milestone-based, from the milestone-based funding into basically times and material funding, which means they paid us every month for the work we do. So now we are in March 2016. We decided to expand the team because, again, publisher said, guys, you need more workforce because the game is complex and you need to do stuff faster and better. So, and we decided to announce the release. That was supposed to be fall 2016. No precise day, but again, fall. We started to work really hard on the story because the systems were working. We were adding some small features. The game lacked the content, the story content, all those story events, various layers of the story, because the game is a kind of multi-layered story-based game. And the publisher decided, okay, you need even more support, so focus on the content, everything around will be taken care by us, like, you know, intro, outro, a lot of additional screens, just write the dialogues, come up with the interesting stories, because that's the whole point of the game. Okay, in August 2016, we realized that 2016 is lost. There's no way we'll finish the game this year. So we decided to move the release to the spring of 2017. Again, spring, no precise date. This gives you some wiggle room. But the idea was, okay, we want to finish before the end of 2016, which should give us some time to polish the game next year before the release. We are adding more and more of content. We decide to hire another guy because there is still a lot of work to do. January, the game is done. So the publisher said, okay, enough of this Blizzard shit. Finish the game now already, because it's time to do this. So the date is set, March 13th. We're still adding content. The game is becoming really a testing nightmare, because there's a lot of possible ways to play the game. Fortunately, we have a pretty good QA team working on that, of course, again, provided by the publisher. But still, we are adding stuff, writing more dialogues. We are crunching as hell. Again, welcome, crunch. You know me, and you usually know I'm against the crunch, but what could I say? That's the reality. And in March 2016, of course, we worked till the release date. No time to polish stuff. There is still some bugs, but we are patching and patching and patching. And of course, we have the problem with the localization, because the game is huge. It's a big localization task. So on the release date, we have only 2 languages, which is Polish, obviously, and English, because that's a must. A couple of days later, we had another 2 languages, and a couple of weeks later, we had even more. It's now like, I don't know, 6 or 7 languages. And still, we plan to create more platforms. We couldn't do that. The game is released, but we still have more platforms ahead. Why was that? Why we were so late? Because we had no idea how complex the game is and how to estimate the work we haven't done before. We didn't create this kind of game. Of course, I did some adventures, but not that kind of adventure. So what went wrong? Did we lack experience? No. Like 40 years of experience, so we knew our stuff. Did we lack knowledge? Yes, to some extent. We knew a lot about the adventures. We knew how to technically make the game. But we lacked some serious important information. Are we bad developers? Again, you are starting doubting yourself at some point, because you should be able to do this, on time. So maybe we are bad developers. I'm not sure. But that was one factor that destroyed the whole, all our previous estimations, because this wasn't a simple adventure. There was one factor, which is that it was real-time adventure. The adventure where the time passes. So not only we have keep track what players do in the game, we have to keep track of them not doing stuff. Because someone could simply not do anything during the flow of the day, and the game needed to react to that. So change the logical state. So not only we had to implement and test various story paths, we also had to add at least some logical reaction to the players not doing what we wanted them to do. And we never did such kind of game. That was completely new to us. The impact of the fact that this is real-time adventure was huge on the whole implementation process. When we started to implementing first days, my initial estimate will be that 1 day of the gameplay would take about 5 days of implementing time. At the end, it was like 3 weeks of the work time. So that's why we were almost three times late with the game, because it required a lot of additional work, and more work we added, more layers, more story layers we added to the game, the more complex further work started to be. So we ended up with the monster, 14,000 dialogue lines. In comparison, that's the size similar to the numbers of dialogue lines in The Witcher 1. But you know, this was done by much smaller story design team. So we had hundreds of story events that needed to be implemented using the simplest tool possible, which was Excel spreadsheet. Because we couldn't come up with the better tool, because I am not a tools programmer, I cannot write any tools. I could simply take the data, tabular data from the spreadsheet and implement pretty nice story system with that. But, you know, writing stuff in the Excel sheet is not the best way to do this. It is very error prone. We had a lot of problems finding dependencies between events and everything. So it was very difficult. And of course, we had a lot of parallel and optional storylines. So keeping track of everything was extremely difficult. So that was real nightmare of design, implementation, and testing, especially at testing. We had a great testing team, but still there were bugs after the game was released, logical bugs. Yeah, so we started. That's what I said. One day took up to 3 days, 3 weeks. Oh, I made a mistake. 3 weeks of actual implementation time. But we managed to pull it off. Why? Because we had a really great understanding publisher. Kudos to them, because they knew the quality is important and quality requires time. Simply as that. So they said, guys, do the game as best as possible. We'll try to support to some, of course, extent. They couldn't offer us as many as we wanted, because that should make business sense. But anyway, they decided we'll try to offload as much work from you as we can. So don't do any marketing stuff, we'll take care of it. Don't do intro and outro, we'll provide you with the necessary stuff. They allowed us to increase the team. They provide us with the excellent QA team, because we won't be able to test this game by ourselves, simply as that. That game wouldn't even be. And of course, we had a lot of localization experience before that. Thanks to my work with The Witcher 1, because I worked with the localization team then, I learned a lot. So it was quite easy for me to provide necessary tools to localize the game in pretty easy and efficient way. Especially in the game that the work is done up to last minute. We had a very good tools that allowed us to find stuff we change in the last minute and supply the changes to the localization chain and receive the localization version and integrate with the game. Otherwise, we'll be even late with the amount of text we had. So what I learned from not only this experience, of those at least 9 projects that were late. So your estimation always will be way off. I don't know anyone who can do this good or well. So, of course, we cut a lot of stuff. The original concept for the game was, I don't remember, 30 days of gameplay. We pretty quickly decided that this is not doable. So we stick to the 21, because it's even number, you know. Always have financial buffers, because if you forget about that, you will be in deep trouble. And it's easy, it's a good idea to team up with the good partners in terms of not only publisher, but people who work with you and try to do your best to make the game happen. And my personal lesson, this is this is not my quote, actually. It is a paraphrase of Ari Gold from the No Real-Time Adventures. So I think of them as a Holocaust, never again. Oh, thank you. Any questions? Oh, I see. One question at least.
There is a theory in software engineering that the projects will always consume all the time that's assigned to them, and even more. Don't you think that GitHub would actually take longer if you didn't think in the beginning that it would take just a year?
I don't know really, because you know I always try to make projects on time. Anyway, so I try to set up the date. Anyway, even though I understand that this is very, I know now, not understand, I know that it's very difficult to estimate anything, but it helps me to do the stuff, because yes, without the date, the game won't be probably even here. We'll be, I don't know, trying to polish it, trying to build a better system, maybe switch from the Excel to the proper tool, hire more people and waste more money. So, but I know those dangers, so I have some experience anyway. So I know that I have to avoid, I have to set some milestone, I have to at least decide about the possible date. I know I will be probably late, and I need some buffers. But again, doing the game for the sake of doing the game means that you are not finishing the game.
So having the game already completed, as compared to the players, what should we cut from the game now?
That's the problem. The game, I cut everything I could. If I cut more, it won't be the same game. People appreciate the complexity, the ability to play different parts, and we knew that this is really the minimal amount of features we need. Maybe we could do less of the story, maybe less days. But we are afraid that making the number even smaller than 21 will make the game too short. And the game is not short. We realized this after finishing the game, actually, because the original estimate that the gameplay time will be like 3 hours or something. Much longer, what I heard, because I don't play my games. So I don't know. But yeah, I asked the tester. He said it's like 7 or something, so it's a good result. So maybe we could cut some days, but it won't change the outcome that much, really. And it will add even more trouble to making the overall story work. Moving story events between the Excel sheets, it's not easy task. So without the tools, it will be even, because we tried to shift some stuff in the game, and it was really, really difficult. Moving events from one to the other, but because you have to move story events which are defined in one sheet, and dialogues which are in the other sheet, and notes for the notebook which are on another sheet, and everything. So, well, cutting wasn't easy at some point.
How did you tackle the localization issue? Because you said the game was huge, and I saw that 14,000 strings to localize into many languages. Did you outsource it completely? Did you coordinate the localization, or did you just push it away and tell other people to take care of it?
I had a pretty nice tools that allowed me to quickly build the string database because we wrote the dialogues in the Excel sheets again, in many Excel sheets. But I had the scripts that combined all the text in the single Excel database basically, and I could quickly mark which of those strings were changed since the last export for the localization. So we could change the localization all the time and quickly find what has changed and what need to be retranslated. And I could pretty quickly implement or integrate even partial localization. So that allowed us to work with different localization translators basically. At the same time, I could change the game and quickly provide new stuff that needed to be localized. That was pretty efficient. But of course, it was done by the external company. This was handled by the publisher. So all I had to do was to export new stuff and import the translations, which was completely automated process and took me like 5 minutes or something. Yeah, because the tools could do a lot of validation first, and the tools would allow me to keep track of the references, because a lot of problems was that I lost references because I had to write them manually. So if I figure out that something is wrong at runtime, that way the tools save us a lot of work with the missing references. Moving stuff would be much easier between the days. It was really nightmare doing this manually by copying simply set of cells between the various spreadsheets. So yes, that would be a huge beneficial. But I know this now. But still, using the Excel was a good idea. Otherwise, Excel is pretty good tool anyway. It's quite efficient. You can copy, you can filter, you can do a lot of stuff there pretty quickly. So we had some tool to some extent. It wasn't editing like XML or JSON files. But dedicated tool. We thought about adding some kind of validation at least for the Excel files, but it was too difficult. I'm not good at, visual basic programming. So yeah, I had to leave it as it was. It's endless, yeah. That's.
It just goes on and on and on. There's always something to add, something to change, and I'm wondering how to say stop. Okay, it's good
The easiest way to make the decision is to look at your bank account. If it's empty, it's probably a good time to release the game. It's pretty good motivation, you know? But if you're not sure, if you are extremely rich, maybe ask for another people's opinion. Maybe the game is good enough at this point. And there's no point to, to polishing it even. Or maybe the game is bad and someone will tell you, okay, keep this for you and don't release and ever. So, thank you.
I think the
this.
last question. Yeah.
Last question, okay. Yeah, I did some research at the beginning of the project, which data entry tools are available for the Unity, because that the game is done in Unity. But I quickly realized that none of those tools will be usable for me. So it was much easier for me to simply use the Excel spreadsheet as a data entry tool. Yeah, the supply of such tools is very, very, very limited, and they cover mostly, RPG games. But we weren't making RPG game. We were making a very specific kind of adventure game at that time, so they wasn't suitable for our needs.
Okay. Thank you, Maciej, for your presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.